Okay. I'd like to ask you a question. Where did you go to school?
Nast.
Oh, okay. Well, I can't speak, I can only speak of my experience. The only reason that I decided I didn't want to go to Harare Poly to do photojournalism is, to be quite frankly honest, I didn't see it broadening my horizons. I didn't see that I would get anything out of that experience of going to school there. So I saved up my money and took myself to the market photo workshop in Johannesburg. And the large number, or the large percentage of students that were in the class were females. And that kind of institution develops a person, it develops your profession, it develops your business sense of what you're doing, it develops you as a photojournalist. There are opportunities that are open to you. Most women that I went to school with, one of them is Zuma's photographer. She is the state photographer for Jacob Zuma. The other one is a multimedia producer at the Mail and Guardian. So these are horizons being broadened. Unfortunately, back home, most of the institutions, like I mentioned before, that photojournalism is not something that people take seriously or people understand. There's never been a photo editor, except in recent history, Changirai Mukwashi, just once in post-colonial Zimbabwe. And there's no person today that is called a photo editor in a newsroom in Zimbabwe. So you can understand, or you can imagine, the kind of curriculum that is being offered at institutions that offer photography or photojournalism. If there is no space that is ever occupied in the newsroom for a photo editor, you can just imagine the kind of institutions we have. I think maybe going forward, I think it's very important to continue to have conversations about, such as these, about the importance of certain roles in newsrooms. It's also important to maybe create centers of learning in different countries, especially in Zimbabwe, because anyone aspiring to be a photojournalist, I am sure that that person will not know where exactly to go to get the proper education or training for them to become one.
Thelma? Both questions as well?
Thank you. I'll speak the one that I'm most passionate about training. I think more needs to be done in as far as training in journalism is concerned. We have universities in Zimbabwe who train people in media, but there's a very big gap where journalism is concerned. I think we need more of that. And even for our journalists who have done their first degrees, we don't have, I don't know if you're aware, of anybody who's currently running a master's program in journalism. There's nobody at the moment. So I think those are the kind of loopholes that we have in Zimbabwe. And on the other question, I think everything has to do with the mindset. We need to just emancipate ourselves from mental slavery, like what the legendary Bob Marley said. Because most of the glass ceilings that we have as women are only but artificial, and we can do something about it.
In terms of the training, when I listen to radio now that we have all these new stations coming on board, sometimes I cringe when I hear some of the stuff that's going on with our crop of young presenters. And I think the misconception that as long as I speak good English and as long as I'm knowledgeable about music, I can be a radio presenter. It's not that simple. I think a lot of people don't actually understand that. It's something that you need to go to school and be trained about and be trained for. So sometimes when I listen, I really honestly wonder, where did they learn, the radio? Because it's very basic things that I've known from school that many years ago that you're not supposed to do on radio. But I hear it now, and it really just breaks my heart that people think it's just as easy as, coming for an audition, and I know my music and I speak English, and it's that simple. So in terms of training, I don't know if people actually think that's important anymore, which is really sad. But your other question of where women are going, I will speak maybe for radio. That when, like for me, I remember very well that when just before I started radio, I was dating this guy for like a year or two, and I thought we were gonna get married and So just that time I started doing, I think it was called Newsbeat at that time. Yeah, Newsbeat. And I was coming out on radio, and everybody thought, wow, she's got a nice voice. And this guy gave me an ultimatum. Either you continue with this career or we're done. And then we were done. Because I told him, this is what I went to school to do. But for him, I think that whole thing of having a woman that's in the limelight, and I don't think he was prepared to deal with that. So I think with a lot of women, I see that even now with a lot of lady presenters that come to ZBC, young lady presenters, the minute they start radio and they start having a family, and there's all these issues that start coming to play now, where they're not allowed to come to radio in the evening, or all these things. So I think for a lot of them, then they sit down and weigh and decide, do I want family? Do I want my career? And sadly, half the time they end up just saying, family. So yeah, I think this is what happens, especially with broadcasting.
Just to stop you quickly there, the radio voice, and that's the thing. I mean, people, and do you ever get subjected to people just calling you up and looking for you because they just love your voice on radio and just want to get to know you
Absolutely,
better?
Absolutely. Just last night, it's like you were listening. I got a call at 9:30 last night. I don't remember that person's name, so I was already in bed. And I'm like, okay, can I help you? My name is Sam from Gweru. I said, okay, Sam, can I help you? You're one of my favorite. I'm like, where did you get my number from? Now I'm getting really agitated because I'm already in bed, and that just really, does not do very well for me. I'm coming to Harare next week, so I thought maybe we can do lunch. You get that all the time. I don't know where this guy got my number from, and immediately I cut him off and I blocked because I knew he was going to continue calling. So that happens all the time, yes. And I think it's just about remaining level-headed and knowing exactly what you want, because otherwise I have to go a bit.
I don't get any calls. Sad. Training is a big issue. I think our educational system, we need a proper curriculum review. I was, let me say, privileged to be part of the IMPI group of panelists. And one thing that really came to the fore, I think, like Cynthia rightly said, I think we've also failed in terms of the industry, just keeping our hand on the pulse in terms of trends, training-wise. The good thing, you asked the question about equipment in the media houses. I think the institutions like NAST, MSU, ZO, Great Zimbabwe, they do fine because they are academically structured. But to get to Thelma's issue, are they training journalists? No, they are not. So I think one thing that also came out through that IMPI process, and I can talk about it because the report is out with the minister somewhere. So and one thing that came out clearly is that we need proper journalism training. And I think it was Thelma who raised this issue. A journalist is not someone who has everything, but a journalist has certain journalistic skills. And because they possess those skills, they then use the other knowledge to make sure that they're able to do that. is that knowledge on documentary making, which is critical. So you are trained as a documentary producer, or it's how do you put across a business story. You are then trained in that sector. You've probably even done business studies or economics or whatever, political science. So I think that's where now, that's why sometimes in other countries, someone will go and do an undergraduate degree in economics, in law, in English, and then they go and study journalism. Because now they want to apply those principles of journalism, and they use the knowledge that they've gained. So I think it is critical for us as a country to now look at the issue of journalism as a sector, and then come up with a proper journalism school. You know, I think Poly, they really try, but they are not capacitated. But I think the one thing that's great now is that technology is getting cheaper. The time we were trained in the 90s, you know, buying a Canon stills camera, my goodness, it was such a huge investment. So you really couldn't afford to buy probably more than one or two. But now there are so many options that you can get in terms of technology, and it's cheaper even for training institutions to acquire that equipment and that technology. And also I think there are also other ways that those that are passionate about journalism as a trade can express themselves using gadgetry. That's not very expensive, but you can actually see that there's something there, Tendai, in the voice. You know, it's more than the voice. Yes, they can record themselves on their mobile phone and send it to you, but what if they recorded? Because of all these gadgets, someone can send you a demo, but it's more than the voice. Now, yes, does it make sense? I mean, is this person structured in the way they are putting across their ideas? So I think really we need to just review the curriculum. We need to turn some of these 20-30 degrees on media, English, economics, communications into something that will feed the industry, so that we are, you know, I think one of your opening lines had to do with 8 radio stations. We've just done 3 weeks, 4 weeks of looking for new talent. You know, it's you know, not very encouraging. Let me put it that way. Because you are looking for the best talent in the country, and you are saying, you know, this is what I want, and I want to go and lodge with a bang. But you are not just quite getting that excellent voice plus the mind. Some areas you get an excellent voice, but perhaps the mind, unfortunately, is not coming with the best voice. You know. So how then do you take the two? It's also a training process. How do you take the two and marry them so that, you know, Tendai can say, oh, okay, these youngsters are okay. So those are some of the challenges that we have. And also I think just taking this sector seriously as a career. You know, some of it people say, well, you know, journalists, all of it does the whole day is just chat, and you know what Tendai does, she wakes up in the morning and says, oh, good morning. You know, they don't believe there's a lot of thought process that goes into it. So we also need to take our industry seriously, so that when we say, guys, if you think you've got talent and you are passionate about the sector, send us a demo, so that you don't get 90% of, you know, this other stuff. So we really have to make sure that we project our industry as a serious industry and invest in it, including the training, the people that will teach, the institutions, because sometimes you attract all these numbers, and when some of these students graduate, they then discover that there's no way where they can go and practice their trade. Because when they want to come into a newsroom at ANZ or AMH, they are told, what? You can't even write an intro, you can't even do this. But this young person is armed with a degree from NAST. And we are breaking their hearts, because as employers we are turning them away because they are not trained properly in a way that we can make use of them. We are running businesses. Therefore, we don't have training rooms within our organizations. Yes, we want to mentor, but we want to start somewhere. So we need these people to come in armed with a starting point.
Thank you very much for those enlightening comments. So now we have about 30 minutes for questions from the floor. If there are there any hands going up at any point, or else I can continue? I see 2 hands. Okay, I see 3. I'll take the first 3 in this order. Can you just say your name as well?
My name is Fungai. In terms of training institutions, can media houses partner with training institutions? As you're saying, NAST, MSU, because they are training out to big people who do not have practical training, which means we will continue to have half-baked practitioners. So if you can partner, maybe from your side as CEO, you can negotiate a process where institutions can partner with media houses so that students can get practical experience, so that when they come to you, you can employ them. Because we have universities who can have up to 300 students per graduation. And those students are not armed with enough practical skills. Can you not come up with a
Are you in an institution or no? Okay. I'll take the 3 questions and then they'll be answered all at once.
Hi, I'm Tatiana. I wanted to ask Susan, you were talking about your 8 radio stations that you're reaching. I wanted to ask, where did you advertise for DJs, and then how do people get involved with these things? How do they know?
So how do you get information about
these stations that are being launched, and if you will have programs for people to learn? I think this would be a good starting point for people to actually start learning, and that's how we can actually build.
Okay, thank you. And do you need to be introduced? Do you need to introduce yourself?
Hi, thank you very much. I'm Rubeneko from My Station, Your Station. And my question first is for Cynthia. How many blunts did you have to smoke? And then, no, I'm kidding. That's just an icebreaker. And then my other question is for Thelma. When we lost our vice president because of what happened politically, right? Vice President Joyce Mujuru, did you not feel obligated as a woman to report in a way that would support her as a woman being taken down? I know that reporting politics is about the facts, and not to say pick a side or become factionalist, but when we look at the strides she's made as a woman, did you not as a female journalist feel that you could have done more to paint her in a better light than she was put in?
Thank you. We can start going. I think there was a question for Susan, and then I'll hand the other mic to Cynthia on standby.
Okay, thank you. I'll start with the training. You know, as media houses, we do have a window in terms of intervention, not necessarily by choice, because it is the way the media programs from the academic institutions are structured. If you look at NAST, MSU, CAT, they have a 6 to 12 months window for attachment. So obviously we do take on board their students for that 6 months stint or sometimes 1 year. But I think your question is broader. I think you don't, because as media houses we all have our editorial policies which are different. However, there are key things that in terms of journalism must be taught in institutions that are trying to feed organizations that must take on board journalists. I will tell you that the students that come out of poly are easier to deal with, because I think in a way they are given the basics of journalism. But the students that are coming out of NAST and that are coming out of MSU and CAT and Great Zimbabwe, I think now have a media.